Assalamu alaikum students. Hope you are well in this pandemic situation. Please follow the health rules. And today we are going to continue our discussion on narration. This is going to be the last class from the direct to indirect narration, and in the next class we are going to study the indirect to direct narration. So let's see. Hura, the son said, "What a match." What happened? Now, look at this sentence. That is, in this interrogative sentence, we do not find who is questioning, and we do not find the name of the listener from the very beginning of this passage. But however, we see that at the last line, it is said, "Father, Bangladesh has beat Australia." So we can understand that this is a conversation between a son and a father. So the son exclaimed in joy that this would be exclaimed in joy because actually the son is celebrating the win of Bangladesh, that it was a great. Now, when I am converting this what a match or what a shot, these things, we can understand that it is actually a kind of compliment, although no adjective has been used. So we may use any relevant adjective, like it was a great match. Now, what happened? We do not know who is questioning, but from the last line we can understand that this is a question by the father. So we will say, the father asked what happened. What happened? When I am saying this, actually this is in simple present tense, so this will be converted into simple past tense. Then the son replied his father that Bangladesh had beaten Australia. So the son replied his father that Bangladesh had beaten Australia. Somebody may ask that why we are not using the sentence like addressing his father, the son replied that. Okay, you may use this line also, that is addressing his father. The son replied that Bangladesh had beaten Australia. But the question is this expression is any real expression, any realistic expression? As we have already said that the father asked, because we understand that it is the father who is asking this question. So you had better write down in this way, that is, it would be less complicated and more natural expression, that the son replied his father that Bangladesh had beaten Australia. Now the question is, that is, how to handle these situations when we actually don't find the second speaker or any other person who is actually speaking or replying. In this case, the strategy should be, at first read the whole passage and identify between which 2 or 3 people actually the conversation is going on. Otherwise, of course, if you try to transform each sentence separately and try to consider each sentence separately, ultimately you will fail to transform the whole passage as per the rules. So at first, try to identify which 2 people are speaking with one another. So the Caliph said, "Are you living here for a long time?" The first sentence is an interrogative one, and it would be the Caliph asked if, asked whom? Asked the girls. The girls if they were living there for a long time. So in this passage, the Caliph is asking questions towards two groups. One is the group of girls and another is a group of dervishes. So we have to mark that is with whom the speaker is talking and who is actually the speaker. Yes, said one of the girls, at least for 5 years. So this would be, and as it is a reply, one of the girls replied in the affirmative and said that they had been living there at least for 5 years. Now, turning to the dervishes, he said, who is this he? It is the Caliph. Now, in case of indirect narration, these expressions which are not within the boundary of the inverted comma, that is, which are not actually considered as the reported speech, these expressions will not be changed at all. So we will just write it down as turning to the dervishes, he the Caliph asked how they knew them. The girls. We don't. The dervishes reply. The dervishes replied that they didn't know the girls. That they didn't know the girls. Now, the thing is, first of all, we must remember that we cannot use any incomplete sentence in the indirect narration. So, in the direct narration, we may get I replied, or I said, I don't, we don't. But these things will not be like he replied that he didn't. No, didn't what? So you have to complete the sentence with the proper object, with the proper extension. And from where you will get the object? You will get the object from the previous sentences. That is, in the previous sentence, the Caliph has asked the dervishes that how they knew the girls. The answer will be, so in this sentence, the dervishes replied that they didn't know the girls, because the conversation between the Caliph and the dervishes is about the girls. Then, we may see that the Caliph is asking the girls, are you living here for a long time? Now here we see the Caliph said, are you living here for a long time? We are bringing and searching for the listener from the next lines. That is, we find that one of the girls are replying. So the Caliph is speaking a group of girls, more than one girl. So he asked the girls if they were replying, if they were living there for a long time, and one of the girls replied, yes. And she said, at least for 5 years. Now this is another incomplete sentence, which we have to complete with the proper structure of a particular sentence. From where we will get them? We will get them from the previous sentence. That is, in the previous sentence, the Caliph has asked about the time of their living there. So here we find that the girls are saying that, okay, we have been living here for at least for 5 years. So when I am transforming this into indirect one, I am bringing this subject, that is they, and as it is actually speaking about for a long time, that's why I have given that they had been living there for 5 years, the past perfect continuous expression. We know that any perfect continuous expression is used when the task takes a long time. However, you may use that they were living there at least for 5 years. How? Because in the previous sentence, the Caliph has asked if they were living. He has not used the past perfect continuous format. He has used past continuous formats. That is the reason that you may use this structure. That is, if they were living there at least for 5 years. If you use past continuous structure here, it is no problem, because in the previous sentence, the speaker himself has used it. One thing you have to remember, that is, in case of indirect narration, direct to indirect narration, there are a lot of there are a good number of chances of variation. So this is not like that I have answered in this way and my friend has answered in another way, and either I or my friend is wrong. No, that is not. Both of you are correct. Perhaps if the sentences maintain the proper structure, then perhaps both of you are correct. If the relationship between the speaker and the listener is maintained properly, then both of you are correct. That is the reason that in the board question, in the answer of the board questions, the instructions they provide us from the board, actually there is a lot of variation in case of this question, and variations are permitted. For example, in this passage, if we say that the Caliph asked the girls if they were living there for a long time, and one of the girls replied in the affirmative, saying that they had been living there at least for 5 years. I have joined more than one sentences and turned it into a single sentence. No problem. Turning to the dervishes, the Caliph asked how they knew them. The dervishes replied, or the dervishes said, that they didn't know them, that they didn't know the girls. So this can be there can be variation, no problem, but you have to remember that is the relationship between the speaker and the listener should be maintained, and of course you cannot make the speaker the listener, you cannot change the role of the speaker to the listener one. So let's continue. The scientists explained our land will drown under water within next 2 or 3 decades. How? The audience said because of global warming. This is the passage which we are going to convert. Now here, the scientist explained to whom? Of course, to the audience. As the word explained has been used here, we will not change it. We will not change the particular words, the particular verbs which are used instead of said. If explain is there, okay, fine. If the scientist enthusiastically said to the audience, in that case we may change it to the into told. But if it is said that the scientist told, then we will keep it as told. The scientist explained. Now the scientist is speaking to the audience. So the scientist explained to the audience that their land would drown underwater within next 2 or 3 decades. Now the audience is asking how. This one word question will be elaborated. And this is the way which I am going to elaborate it. That is, the audience asked how it would happen. The audience asked how it would happen. Now this is actually the thing. That is, when I am elaborating a question, I must give a structure which represents a whole sentence. Now here we have brought a subject, that is it, then would, because we find at the first sentence that the scientist is actually explaining about a future incident. So how it would happen. You may give use like how it would take place, or how it would drown underwater within next 2 or 3 decades, that is taking down the whole half portion of the previous one. But it would be better, that is this expression, that how it would happen, this is rather more concise. So because of global warming, the scientist, he is answering question. So the scientist answered that. Now because of global warming, this is also an incomplete sentence, and this we are going to elaborate. The scientist answered that it would happen because of global warming. So when I am elaborating this sentence, I am actually bringing the structure, the subject plus main verb plus the subject plus auxiliary verb plus main verb from the previous sentence. That is how it would happen. So here happen is my main verb, would is my auxiliary verb, and it is my subject. So we must elaborate the sentences, although they are not elaborated in the the direct portion. When I am changing the direct speech into indirect one, I have to elaborate the sentences. That's all for today. Okay, students, Allah Hafiz and be safe.